The ASIO boss has revealed an unnamed former politician betrayed Australia to foreign spies. It's triggered shockwaves in Canberra with growing demands to name the traitor. Let's go live to Trudy McIntosh, who's here in the studio. And Trudy, this is really a huge story and generated a lot of reaction.
Well, Mike Burgess, normally behind the shadows, emerging last night, and he is now the talk of the town. The ASIO boss revealing what had been previously classified, details of an unnamed ex-politician and their conduct in working with foreign spies. He also revealed last night that that person had attempted to link these foreign operatives with a family member of a prime minister. No more details than that revealed by Mark Burgess, and that has triggered a lot of debate in Canberra here this morning. Joe Hockey, the former Liberal Treasurer and former ambassador to the US, demanding this morning that the person be named, arguing that it taints every former, current and even future politician not to do so. He was backed in by opposition leader Peter Dutton, but a very interesting split on this today. The Shadow Home Affairs Minister James Patterson this morning saying the person should not be named. So Mr Dutton and his Shadow Home Affairs Minister currently at odds on this.
I haven't been told, and Mike Burgess is as good as they get. He's a great head of the ASIO, and he's really a first-class operator. I think, though, in this circumstance, it's pretty rough to essentially besmirch former politicians when he's talking about one. And the trouble is, if he doesn't indicate the name, then there's a cloud hanging over everybody else.
As is explained, the conduct occurred before the passage of the espionage and foreign interference legislation in 2018, which means they couldn't be charged for offences because it was not retrospective. Given that, I think it would be unfair to name someone publicly, and you'd obviously be running a very serious defamation risk if you did so.
So James Patterson not necessarily speaking on behalf of his leader, and also a lot within the coalition party room. MPs texting me now saying that every one of them is besmirched unless this person is named. Don't expect Mike Burgess to do that, though. He was asked explicitly about this last night as a part of the threat assessment by a journalist. Why won't you name this person as an act of transparency? Here was his answer.
I'm not going to name the individual. We're a rule of law country, and if they're not doing it now, they're not breaking the law, so there's nothing our mates in the Australian Federal Police can do, nor should they. And we're not in the business of kind of coming out with things like that. Of course, if we see them go active again and they need our attention, the task force attention or the Federal Police attention, I can guarantee you they'll get it.
So the ASIO boss making it clear there's nothing his agency, Kieran, or the AFP can do for this former politician. The debate, though, shifting to whether that should be different, because Peter Dutton on radio saying today these foreign interference laws, which he was a cabinet minister at the time under Malcolm Turnbull in 2018, are not retrospective. He says there should be a conversation about making them retrospective now in order to deal with this former person.
Trudy, thanks so much. We'll talk to you a bit later in the program. And these comments, Trudy, from Mike Burgess, as she mentioned there, have raised concerns in the public service. I've been speaking to one former senior public servant who told me he's doing the annual threat assessment. He clearly does it with a view to a headline. Last year, it was a nest of spies. Last year, it was public servants. This year, it's a politician that's not loyal. It's the third time he's referred to politicians in this annual speech. If you're going to say they've betrayed their country, you better say more than just they've betrayed their country. I spoke to the former Treasurer, former Ambassador to the United States, Joe Hockey, a short time ago for his reaction.
Well, every Australian should be annoyed about it. If the head of our intelligence organisation is stating that a politician or a former politician was colluding with a hostile country, then he needs to disclose who it was. It's just as simple as that. If someone has been a traitor, I can't think of a more significant issue when it comes to national security. And of course he should say immediately who it is, not simply come out of the shadows, say there was a politician and then go back to the shadows and leave everyone else wondering who the hell it was.
And also, by extension, does it not impugn every politician until he declares who it is?
Well, it's going to impugn every politician, past, present and future, because this is the most heinous of crimes. suggesting that someone who has been in politics for the nation then goes and aids and abets an enemy of Australia and Australians is a heinous crime. Why didn't this person go to court? Why haven't they gone to jail? It's not good enough that the head of ASIO says that he gave them a rap over the knuckles and they've moved off into the sunset. That's not acceptable at all. It is something that impugns not only all Australians, but it has a big impact on our international reputation, whether it be in London, in Washington, or anywhere else.
As a former ambassador and senior political figure, trust is pivotal in your relationships, and certainly in the United States, that would be something. It's a currency almost, isn't it? So would there be question marks over every Australian politician dealing in those circles internationally?
Of course there will be. Of course. Look, here in Washington, D.C., Americans take us into their trust. They trust us. And as part of what's known as the Five Eyes Agreement between Canada, the US, Australia, the United Kingdom and New Zealand, we share information, intelligence that helps us to go after terrorists, to prevent terrorist attacks. Now, if the head of our national security organisation says they found a politician working with a hostile nation, but I'm not going to tell you who it was, these countries are going to start to clam up, particularly when it comes to dealing with Australia's political leaders. This is not a flippant issue. And by the way, in Australia, we have long gone after politicians, quite rightly, who have behaved in a criminal fashion, who have stolen funds or acted inappropriately towards staff. We name them, we shame them, and rightly so, and bring the full force of the law to them. In this case, they've betrayed Australia. So surely there must be some sanction. There has to be some process other than the head of ASIO just making a public statement and retreating.
Well, as you put it, it's not a flippant issue. It's not a flippant comment by a security commentator or journalist. It is the Director General of Security.
Correct. He's the man in charge of protecting our nation. He's the man in charge of identifying people who are hostile to the nation. His organisation is responsible for liaising with other countries' intelligence organisations to protect the Australian people. I want to know, as someone who was in Parliament until 2020, I want to know who it was. I don't care if they were Liberal, Labor, Green or anything like that. I want to know if I dealt with them. I want to reflect on what I might have said to them that was relevant to the national interests. I want to be sure that others didn't say anything inappropriate to them that might have hurt Australia. You know, this is a very serious issue, Kieran, and it goes to the very heart of whether we're serious about protecting ourselves as a nation and protecting the Australian people. And you cannot have the head of our national security organisation go public with allegations against or statements of fact against a politician and then not have the guts to name who that person was. A rap on the knuckles from the head of ASIO is not appropriate, and it's not enough for someone who was a traitor to Australia.